Dan Ashworth has been challenged to bring in more youthful players and why the future looks bright with some of our up-and-coming stars. Antony is linked with a shock exit. United's next transfer priorities are revealed, and we are linked with 2 new left-backs. All this plus the latest Manchester United news and transfer news that will keep you right up to date with everything. Welcome to Man United Review. My name's Jamie. Before we get into it, please smash a like on the video, and let's jump straight into it. So let's kick off with the Antony stories. So this came from Court Offside. Now, Court Offside have some credible journalists working for them and some less credible journalists working for them. Fabrizio Romano, Ben Jacobs, just to name a few, work for Court Offside. This story came from one of their less credible journalists, being truthful with you. So I would like to see a bit more credibility personally, if the report's to be believed. However, what they're claiming is that Eddie Howe is considering a move for Manchester United's Brazilian winger Antony if their pursuit of Anthony Elanga falls through. Sources indicate that Man United are now open to selling a player that they paid £86 million for a fee in the region of £40 million. £86 million we paid for Antony. That is shocking, isn't it? And then they give him a 200 grand a week contract. Terrible. Is that one of the worst transfers United have ever done? Let me know in the comments. I think it's up there. I genuinely think that could be the worst transfer I think United have kind of done, especially considering the form of the player. Obviously, if it worked out and he was unbelievable, then we wouldn't be talking about it. But that's got to be one of the worst deals, I think, in United's history. £86 million for a one-footed, one-trick pony that just wants to balloon the ball over the bar from 30 yards every time he gets it, which, you know, if we could get £40 million for him, that would probably reverse it. That would go down as one of the best deals, I think, in United's history. If we got £40 million for Antony, £40 million, in my opinion, is what we should have paid for Antony. That was his value, I think, at the time. We massively overpaid for him. So if we got 40 million quid for him from Newcastle, that would be unbelievable. Unbelievable bit of business. And I kind of, even though it came from like a lesser known or lesser credible source from Court Offside, I can see that deal actually having a bit of potential in it, because I do think Antony, while I've just totally slated him there, he does have some good interest and good qualities that I think would fit maybe a team like Newcastle. He's a hard worker. He's got good energy. He's a good presser of the ball. He's got that kind of fantastic work rate. You can't kind of knock that around Antony. He's just not very good on the ball and terrible at the offensive side of the games. But in terms of being a hard-working, honest, you know, good presser, would fit that kind of system, but maybe more of a system player. So I could actually see that being a decent move for Antony and for Newcastle as well. I'm not just saying that because I want them to come in for him neither. I mean, I'm you know, it's not like I'm going to influence Newcastle's decision to bring in Antony, but I could see that making sense. But again, I would want to wait for a bit more credibility on the sources before I genuinely believe that. Obviously, I'll bring you if anything comes out, so make sure you subscribe to the channel if you aren't already. But let me know what you think about that in the comments. Would you sell Antony to Newcastle for £40 million? I think that's going to be quite a unanimous conversation to have. But in fact, let me know let me know in the comments, would you do that deal? Now, Newcastle are not the only team that have been linked with Antony. So again, there's been more reports about a move to Fenerbahce in Turkey. So it's believed that United's Antony is wanted by Mourinho this summer as Fenerbahce look to strengthen their attack. The 24-year-old has struggled for opportunities so far this campaign, having played just 1 minute in the Premier League. However, the Brazilian is believed to have already made his mind up about any offers from elsewhere. I brought you that before. That Antony's not interested in going anywhere this summer. And obviously the previous report we just mentions January, which could be an opportunity depending on the game time, I suppose, he gets. So it might change his mind if his game time is limited. And that would be a permanent option as well with the Newcastle one. Antony's agent himself had the following to say: I see reports about a potential exit on loan. Antony's plan is clear. Manchester United, he wants to stay. He's only focused on Man United. We've already spoke about that with the club. So Antony's not going anywhere or not going to Turkey at the moment, but who knows? I think that Newcastle deal would make sense. whether Newcastle would pay anywhere near £40 million, I have my reservations about. I think we'd be lucky to get £20-25 million for Antony. He's on an absolute fortune in wages as well. I can't see it personally. I think we're going to be trapped with Antony. It's either going to be loan deals, because why is he going to want to take a massive pay cut? He was on 20 grand a week at Ajax before he came to United, and we give him a 200 grand a week contract. Like, is he really going to want to take a pay cut like that to go somewhere else? I doubt it. I very much doubt it. But let me know what you think about that story in the comments. Now, moving away from Antony, we've also been linked with a couple of other exits. So, Manchester United are lining up new midfield signings for 2025 as they are looking to continue their squad overhaul over the course of the next 2 transfer windows, and securing replacements for Casemiro and Eriksen is being viewed as a priority behind the scenes. Ashworth has been challenged to bring in youthful alternatives instead of falling into the same trap as previous years when experienced trophy winners coming into the final years of their career were targeted, which I'm all for. I'm happy with that kind of report. Again, not from the most credible outlet. However, I am all up for that. Getting rid of the kind of mistakes of the past. Casemiro, Eriksen. I mean, Eriksen was decent for the first half of season till he got injured, and then he's kind of fallen off totally from there. Doesn't seem to have the legs to play in midfield in the Premier League. So 2 really interesting kind of takeaways from that. One is the priority going into 2025 is the midfield, which I 100% agree with. We've lacked kind of quality depth in midfield for a number of years. Obviously, we've had the McFred situation. Then we bought in Casemiro, who's good for a period of time, and he's fallen off a cliff. Same what I've just mentioned there. Same with Christian Eriksen. Yes, Kobe Mainoo's coming through. We've got Toby Collier coming through, but they're youngsters. So really interesting to see. Obviously, we bought Ugarte, but he's not played yet. But again, I 100% agree that going forward, midfield will be the next priority position. Left back and maybe another forward, but obviously the left back depends on the fitness of Shaw and Malacia, so it's not necessarily a priority at this moment in time, whereas I do think the midfield is. But then also the second part of that report is saying United have been challenged to go for more youthful players, which is only going to be good for us going forward, because you've got to remember, Ineos are looking at this as more of a longer term plan. Yes, we want players in for the here and now, and we want to perform now, but Ineos are looking at this as like a 2-3 year kind of rebuild, which is frustrating. But so they're getting in the likes, like the younger players to develop in that period is only going to be good for us going forward, and it's just going to add to the unbelievable talent that we've already got coming through our youth teams, which actually leads me nicely into the next story I've got for you. So this come from a really good Twitter account who do really good scout reports on young players and future stars. Did a really good kind of summary of some of the potential players coming through United's youth team, because I do actually think this is the one area that we've done really well at over the last few years or in recent times, is the development of youth, and everything that's going on in the kind of reserves and under 18s, under 16s age bracket is actually, been probably the only success over the last 10, 11 years. Or recent years anyway, bringing through the youth. So what they've kind of put together is they do like a rating system around how talented the players are. So you've got Samuel Lascelles, who we're about to sign, 16-year-old right winger, potential 9.2 out of 10. Chido Obi-Martin's been rated a 9.4 out of 10. Shea Lacey a 9 out of 10. Harry Amos a 9.3 out of 10. And then Siku Kony a 9.3 out of 10, and Lenny Yoro a 10 out of 10. And I agree with the post saying that the future looks really bright. Rising Star 11, really good Twitter account. Give them a follow if you're interested in things like that. They could do really good scout reports on young players and obviously rate them as well, which is really good, because there's not too much data around for you to research on some young players. Yes, there's a few highlights on YouTube. And yes, there are a few but not kind of really good stats like that as well. So they are a really good site for that. But yeah, future does look massively positive with those players. So if we're now going to be looking at maybe not at that age bracket, but more younger players like Ugarte 23 to rebuild, then I'm all for it. I think it's only positive for me going forward, those kind of reports. But let me know what you think in the comments. Now, the next story totally goes against that, which is United have been linked with Lewis Dunk. I'm going to say take this story with a big fat pinch of salt, though, to start with. But the report goes that Manchester United are interested in signing Lewis Dunk and have shortlisted the Brighton and Hove Albion defender as a target for future transfer windows, with both Harry Maguire and Victor Lindelof's contracts set to expire in 12 months. It's understood that United would like to replace the duo with a player of similar experience and who is available at a cut price, which Dunk is likely to be, as his own deal nears its end. That came from Spanish outlets via the Manchester Evening News. That goes totally against what we've just been discussing about bringing through more youthful players and wanting to bring down effectively the age profile of the squad by removing Casemiro, obviously Christian Eriksen. It just mentions in the report Harry Maguire, Victor Lindelof in the last year of their contract. You've got Johnny Evans, Tom Heaton also in the same position as well. So I would say take that because it's not come from a very credible source. But the concept, though, I mean, while we've just kind of mentioned and bigged up I have mentioned and bigged up the youth team, I do think sometimes there are a bit of value of having maybe some older experienced players in and around the place. If you go back to the class of 92, when they kind of come through, Giggsy and Scholesy and all that, they've all kind of said in interviews that they were helped by the senior pros, though at the time, the Peter Schmeichels, Bruce's, Cantona, those sort of play Incy when he was there. Those sort of characters were invaluable in helping the class of 92 to flourish because and do all the things behind the scenes. So there's a bit of value of having a bit of experience around the place, especially if you're going to go for a massively youthful squad. I do think that having a few seasoned pros around would add a bit of value. So I could see why it would maybe make sense from there, but it's not come from anywhere credible. So yeah, take it with a pinch of salt is what I would say for the time being. But let me know what you think about that in the comments. And let's move on to the left-back position. So Tottenham Hotspur and Manchester United are watching Lecce and Denmark fullback Patrick Dorgu after he turned down a potential move to the Premier League giants Chelsea. Manchester United and Tottenham Hotspur have checked in on the 19-year-old. The Red Devils are in the market for a left-back due to the injury issues of Luke Shaw and Tyrell Malacia that came from HITC Football, who, not the most credible source, but a really interesting player, really interesting profile of player as well. Obviously mentions that he's, been heavily linked with Chelsea and Tottenham. Reading the report, it did feel a little bit like Man United's name was just thrown in there to generate clicks, being honest with you, because it linked in with Gareth Bale, said that he's got so it was more to me of a Tottenham story potentially, but they threw Man United's name in there just to generate more views. That's how it felt when I was reading the report, but would be an interesting option. He's 6 foot tall, 9.3 potential out of 10. He's quick, dribbling, tackling, work rate, ability to read the game, dueling. They're all of his strengths. Only 19 years old as well, so fits the profile of what we've just mentioned before around bringing in younger profile of players, hungrier players to kind of go along with some of the great youth players that we've got coming through. Very, very quick player, would be really interesting option. Apparently they want around 30 to 35 million euros for him as well. But yeah, one to keep an eye on. I would want to see a little bit more credibility though than HITC, because like I said, the story felt a little bit to me like it was more of a Tottenham or maybe even a Chelsea piece and just threw Man United's name in there saying, oh yeah, United are also interested in him. But let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know your thoughts on Dorgu in the comments. And he's not the only left back we've been linked with. So Manchester United are closely monitoring Juventus left back Joan Cabal ahead of a potential approach in January. United have had officials monitoring Cabal, and it is claimed that the Turin Giants will demand at least £25 million for his exit. United are keeping tabs and could make an offer in the coming months. Now, that came from Italian sources. It has now been picked up by a couple of Spanish outlets today. That's been put in the Manchester Evening News, but originally that's where the kind of story came from. Again, really interesting option. 23-year-old Colombian, great defensive stats. Not the most offensive of fullbacks though. 6'1", very tall for a fullback. 100% of his aerial duels. Yeah, looks one to keep an eye on, but again, not the most offensive fullback. But really interesting option. So 2 new names were linked to United at left back. Again, not from the most credible of sources, though. So I would say take the reports at this stage with a pinch of salt. I'll bring you any more stories if it develops. So make sure you subscribe to the channel for that. And that is you all up to date with the latest Manchester United news and transfer news. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I enjoy reading them. Don't forget to smash a like on the video on your way out. And I will see you in the next one.